Well, welcome to Mindset Monday, everybody. I'm really excited for today's conversation. We've got Melissa Bozak in the house. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, some of you guys will be familiar with Melissa, but for those of you who don't know Melissa, Melissa is a certified integrative health and wellness specialist who specializes in gut health and hormone health. Is that right?
Yes, and weight loss
And weight loss. Okay,
because they are
beautiful.
all so connected. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to today's conversation because, well, selfishly, I'm looking to kind of like learn as much as I can from Melissa. And
Yeah.
lately, I heard a phrase that's been running around in my head. It was Rob Diedrich, I believe. I don't know how you say his last name, but the guy from Ridiculousness. And he said something the other day that just struck a chord with me. He said that his goal is to be lean, mean to 114. And
Oh, yeah.
absolutely. I'm doing everything I can to, be not only live a long time, but also have that vibrant, full life throughout. So I've been drinking my veggie greens. I've been doing all kinds of things as far as kind of optimizing sleep and exercise and
Yeah.
routines like that. So looking to see what else Melissa can teach us. And I'm sure it's going to be a lot. And I'm sure you guys will pick up a few gems as well. So, well,
Amazing.
Melissa, let me ask you, how did you get into the health and wellness industry in the first place, or what inspired you to do that?
Yeah. So I was always interested in fitness my whole life, like from from high school on. Um, and so at the age of about 29, I guess I got heavy into weightlifting and I really liked it. I found it as a great outlet for stress and I just yeah, I became really passionate about that. And then I decided from there that I was actually going to take it one step further and compete in bodybuilding. So I actually competed as a bikini athlete.
Wow.
And I did that. I got on stage three times and did that over the course of about 2 years. Um, and I loved it. Once again, it was like something that, I had total control over. It was so unique to see how you could manipulate the body with like different foods and different strength training. And it was like a science experiment.
Right.
And so, yeah, I love that. And then right after my last competition, I actually met my now husband. And shortly after we had met, about 6 months in after meeting him, he was diagnosed with cancer. And so instantly, my passion for physical fitness and mental wellness kind of grew very quickly, and my desire to know more and understand more on like a cellular level and to know what every thing I was putting in my body was doing and what the chemicals were doing. And I became like infatuated with overall health and wellness. So the week that he was diagnosed with cancer was the same week that I actually signed up for school to be a health coach. I figured, what better way to understand all of this and to take my training at IAN, which is the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, and it's the largest nutrition school in the world. I think they teach in like 70 some languages. They have an actual campus in New York City, or you can train virtually, which is what I did. So I could be home with my husband while he went through the chemotherapy. And then, yeah, so that was a 1 month course, or sorry, a 1 year course. Got certified in as a health coach, and then I continued from there and got my certification in hormone health as well because I realized that there was such a big connection between overall health and hormone health. Um, yeah, so I and then my passion for and my previous training in fitness competitions is what led me to also be able to really help with weight loss coaching as well. Um, so yeah, I guess that's what kind of lit the fire was the diagnosis of cancer for my husband.
Well, talk about like a sudden need or like a motivation to deep dive right into that stuff. And
Yeah.
I mean, when you're put into a position like that, sometimes that'll really force action, won't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, There was nothing else that I wanted to do or know at that point in my life,
All
right?
consuming, I'm sure.
All consuming. I think
Yeah.
everybody around me thought I was probably crazy a little bit. But
Well, you know what? I always say that never apologize about being obsessed,
no,
especially when it comes to things like your health or your wealth or your finances, your relationships, your longevity, things like that. And, you know, that's not a negative thing. Sometimes people hear that word obsession and they think that it's a bad thing, but it can actually be a real positive, in my opinion.
yeah, I agree.
So let me ask you, why is something like gut health so important?
Oh, yeah. So that's a really loaded question, but I think like to kind of narrow it down so that, you guys on the call have an understanding of the importance it plays. I mean, not only with our mindset and in making decisions, but in our overall health and wellness. So, gut health has been linked to, I mean, depression, anxiety. It has been linked to disease, inflammation, inflammation stems, autoimmune diseases, different kinds of diseases. Um, yeah, I mean, it has been linked to inflammation in the body. So, I mean, overall, I always tell my clients when they first come to see me, no matter what's going on, whether you feel like you have hormonal issues, whether you feel like you can't lose weight, whether you have brain fog, whether you eat and you get bloated every time you eat, or you have discomfort, or you're constantly taking Tums or heartburn
Yeah.
pills, whether you've been diagnosed with thyroid issues, like whatever health issue you're dealing with, my suggestion is start healing your gut and a
Hmm.
lot of those issues will subside. A
Is that
lot of
right?
those issues will go away.
Hmm.
Yeah. So gut health plays, I think one of the most important roles in our overall health. It's connected to sleep.
Really?
Um, oh yeah. Yeah. So I actually pulled up some really interesting studies to kind of talk with you guys today about some of the different things that gut health does. So,
Cool.
I mean, we can start with like the whole, the impact on depression and the impact on anxiety, being that this is, a mindset group. I found
Oh,
it
lay it
really,
on
really,
us.
yeah, I found it really, really interesting. Um, but before I go through the impact on depression and anxiety, I thought it'd be really interesting to have a very short conversation about something that happened this morning. I was contacted by a friend of mine, and she's a doctor in town, and she's actually doing my gut reset program right now with me because she's a doctor, but she's not a doctor of nutrition, right?
Okay.
And so she's been
Funny
having
how
some.
that's it's funny how historically in the medical field that hasn't been more of a emphasis placed on nutrition and things like that when it comes to the medical field, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's where I guess functional medicine doctors come in.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Food, medicine is thy food, and thy food is medicine. Like,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
So,
say that because a couple of my family members are medical doctors,
oh,
you
yeah,
know, surgeons and GPs, and they talk about how it's like in all of their years of schooling, the chapter on nutrition is like a 1 week
six
type of
hours.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
super minimal. And it's like, wow, interesting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I
Anyway,
know. Yeah, so she's doing my gut reset because she's been having a lot of like gut issues this past year. And she wasn't really sure what was going on or why. She had a really bad bout of food poisoning a year ago, and she kind of figured that's probably what the issue was.
hmm,
Um, but and this is just a fact that I'm going to bring up, and there's no like, it's interesting, but it's been about COVID and the COVID vaccine. But what new studies are starting to show is that whether you've been infected by the virus itself or you've had the vaccine, either or both, that the spike protein in the virus itself and or the vaccine, they're not quite sure which one yet, has been shown to actually kill our healthy bacteria in our gut. And
Really?
so now we're seeing this influx of really sick people, right? We're seeing like people are getting sick and it's lasting like 3 weeks. People can't get over it. It goes from a cold to
Mm.
a flu. And like I'm even dealing with that. Our house has been sick for 3 weeks and we're like, what is going on? Like, we're pretty healthy people, but I also think that my daughter and I just had COVID like a month ago. So it's interesting that all of these studies are coming up, but again, it's showing the relation of like how everything is affecting our gut health. Um, so yeah, do you want me to talk about the impact on anxiety and depression first, or do you want me to talk about how our gut health gets affected by everyday things and then what we can do? Which
Well,
direction should we go? Shall we go first?
I'm super interested to learn a little bit about both, but maybe tell us a little bit about the connection between stress, anxiety, depression, and how that gut health relates to that. And then I'd be super interested to hear about just kind of some everyday type of things too.
Stuff. Yeah. Okay. So the gut, our gut is made up of or is home to the enteric nervous system or the ENS. So our body has both the central nervous system and the
Right.
enteric nervous system. And what's really interesting is that ENS is made up of two thin layers with more than 100 million nerve cells, which has more than the spinal cord. And that's in
Really?
our, yeah, and that's just in our guts. um Evolutionary, like over evolution, like they believe what happened is that over time these nerve cells were created in our gut because it was instead of the brain or instead of the gut sending signals all the way up to the brain to say digest this food, release these these different types of whatever is necessary to digest the food,
Enzymes or whatever it
yeah,
might
the
be.
enzymes and all of the things, and then come back down and send that signal back to the gut to do that. Our body discovered a way to do it more efficiently by putting, this enteric nervous system in place so that the messages didn't have to go like this. It just stayed in our tummy or our gut.
Right.
Um, yeah, and it helps with, controlling blood flow and secretions and digesting our food. But what else is interesting is that it used to, studies have shown 80%, now 90%, now 95% of serotonin levels are produced in the gut.
No way. Is that
So
right? Huh?
90% of serotonin levels, what is serotonin, linked to? Serotonin levels are linked to depression, anxiety. It's our happy hormone, right?
Right.
So
Right.
if we don't have the proper bacteria in our gut and like a diverse collection of different good and bad bacteria, what happens is we don't actually produce enough serotonin.
Hmm.
So depending on where your gut health is, some people may be producing a lot of serotonin and others may not be producing enough serotonin. So
Really?
there was research learned that the healthy gut microflora transmits brain signals. So serotonin and the microflora in the gut they actually transmit signals to the brain. So if you
Hmm.
don't have enough serotonin and you don't have enough good bacteria, these pathways and these signals cannot go where they need to go. And what's interesting is that they proved that inflammation affects the brain and how someone thinks,
Of
and which
course.
explains why more than 20% of inflammatory bowel disease patients exhibit depression.
No way, huh?
So there's this really big connection between serotonin levels and transmission to the brain of serotonin, and inflammation in the body. So um, if you suffer from depression, if you suffer from anxiety, focusing on your gut health and getting enough of an array of different types of bacteria in there can help to relieve those symptoms of depression and anxiety. It can help, it can help with both of those things. Um, so yeah, I mean, when I found out that 95% of serotonin was developed in the gut and that you need the proper bacteria in there to develop that serotonin, it's really interesting and it's it really shows me at probably how many people have low serotonin levels and they
Right.
aren't producing the right amount of serotonin on a daily basis.
A hundred
Yeah.
percent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So I find
so
that, yeah. So
well, let me ask you, like, what do you think is, is there a connection then between the high levels of like anxiety and depression, and maybe even something like ADHD or something like that,
Um,
and the highly processed foods that we're eating that
yeah,
are maybe a correlation, and maybe not causation, but you certainly see high levels of both.
I
And
think it's actually causation and correlation.
yeah, I would think
Um,
so too.
Yeah, because what one of the suggestions that I have for everybody who wants to increase, good gut health and increase good bacteria in the gut is you need to have a really diverse selection of food in your diet, of whole foods diet. We get lots of different, macronutrients and micronutrients from different types of fruits and vegetables. We get high doses of fiber from fruits and vegetables. All
Right.
of these things play a really important role in gut health. We need, you want a biodiversity or of different types of bacteria in there. In order to get that, you have to eat quite a diverse selection of foods, right? From
Right.
leafy greens to cruciferous vegetables, to high fiber containing fruits and vegetables, prebiotic fibers, which we'll get into. So if you're eating, the SAD diet, the standard American diet, which
Right.
is highly processed foods
Of
that
course.
are, lots of white, not a lot of nutrients, and you're eating that type of a diet, your lack of bacteria, of good and bad bacteria, but your lack of good bacteria in your gut is probably pretty, it's going to be, you're not going to have great gut health because you're not
Right.
doing anything to support it.
Right.
Therefore, anxiety levels are probably increased. Depression probably is a thing in your life. Um, you probably have some sort of autoimmune disease and autoimmune stuff going on because you probably are in a state of inflammation.
Right.
um so again, that's why I say, like, no matter what you're dealing with from a health perspective, even with my husband having cancer, he was obviously in like a state of inflammation for a very long time.
Right.
And when you can combat all those things and you can, like, lower inflammation levels and increase gut bacteria, all of those other things are going to be affected in a positive way.
Right. Well, I can see how that would be the case. Now,
Yeah.
what really interests me too is that like I tend to see something like this contribute to almost like a cycle where, if you're eating the standard American diet and you're suffering from either anxiety or depression or things of that nature, well, I know personally speaking, when I feel that way, I crave certain foods that
Ah,
then contribute again to, feeling a specific way and things like that. And I wonder, to what extent do things like sugar or even alcohol, or maybe the sugar that's in alcohol, kind of, what does effect does that have on our gut biome, and how does that create a little bit of that like loop mechanism?
yeah, like almost an addictive tendency.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, there's a few different things that affect our gut health on a daily basis. So
Okay.
let's start from, like, from the top and kind of move down.
Okay.
So digestion, that's our number one thing that is to support gut health. You need to have optimal digestion. So basically, we start with, like, well, let's start with the outside. So things like stress. Okay,
Right.
stress plays a huge role on gut health. When you are living in a
Really.
high stress job, you have a lot of stress at home. You're stressed out due to a workload. When you are stressed, your cortisol levels are high, right?
Right.
So that's that fight or flight kind of mechanism that kicks in.
Right.
Unfortunately, your body doesn't know the difference between your reaction to seeing a bear in the woods versus hating your job or
Yeah, a
walking
whole list of
into,
emails or something like
yeah,
that.
or walking into a restaurant and your ex is there.
Yeah.
Like that like instant anxiety or that
Sure.
instant cortisol spike, right? And your body doesn't know the difference. So you're constantly living in with a high cortisol, which is anxiety.
Right.
um and our body copes by coming down from that when we're away from danger. But in this day and age, we all live very high stress jobs, so usually people's cortisol levels are higher. Okay.
Right.
Then we are also exposed to pollution, whether it's indoor
Okay.
pollution, outside pollution. And then we eat different types of things and drink different types of things that are, like we said, the standard American diet. We process foods, we drink alcohol, high sugar foods. All of these things will contribute to poor gut health because they're not feeding the healthy bacteria. They're actually killing the healthy bacteria over time, and then
Sure.
we're increasing the bad bacteria because we all have good bacteria and bad bacteria in there, and we do need a balance of both, but it's the
Okay.
right balance.
Right.
Um, and and then the next step is chewing. So that's the first step of digestion and how we actually start with proper gut health. So we eat while we're on the run, we eat in our cars, we
Mm.
eat while we're on the computer. And
Sitting
so
in
we're
front of the TV
sitting
and
in front of the TV, the computer, watching your phone. And so
right.
that first step of digestion, we're missing it. So we now, enters our stomach, and due to things like stress, anxiety, poor diet choices, drinking, smoking, lack of exercise, our stomach acid is low.
Okay.
So now we don't have enough stomach acid to digest the food properly, which is already improperly digested from step number one, which is chewing.
Right.
So now we get things like heartburn and indigestion because we have, or bloating when we eat. So if
Okay.
you suffer from bloating or indigestion or heartburn, you have a lack of stomach acid. You don't have enough stomach acid because we've done things to reduce our proper amount of stomach acid that we need to digest food properly and assimilate the nutrients from those foods.
Right.
So now, if you don't have enough of that in there, what happens is the food starts to ferment, it doesn't digest properly, and that's when we kind of gets those off gases almost, and that's when we feel those
Right.
uncomfortable symptoms of. So lots of people think you have too much stomach acid,
Right. Yeah.
right? So we take things like Tums or a Zantac, or people that maybe are on Nexium from the doctor. And what those medications do, those are called proton pump inhibitors. And what they do is they actually will reduce the amount of stomach acid that your body will create, which is actually
It's
adding to the problem.
no way.
So when you take stuff to reduce your stomach acid, you're reducing the symptoms, right? It's the Band-Aid, right? It's
Sure.
the Band-Aid. So you're putting the Band-Aid on, you're getting rid of those uncomfortable symptoms of indigestion, heartburn, and bloat. But in the same time, you're actually making the problem worse, and it's going to continue, which then you're always going to need the medication for.
Right.
So my best suggestion for that, is if you suffer from any of those, I would replace any type of like a Tums or an antacid of any kind with digestive enzymes or hydrochloric acid.
Hydrochloric acid. Okay. Really?
Yeah,
Eh?
which is HCl. There are digestive enzymes that come in the form of like papaya enzymes or bromelain, which is what's found in pineapple.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and you always hear like, have any of you ever gone to like one of those Brazilian steakhouses where
Right.
it's all the meat? And what do they serve after dinner?
Yeah. Pineapple.
Pineapple. Why?
Right.
Because it helps with digestion.
No way.
Yeah, so that's why they serve it. And so that you don't feel so
Interesting.
bad when you leave the restaurant, you want to come back again.
Interesting. That's
um,
so funny. That kind of stuff just fascinates me because I find like there's so much like ancient wisdom that
oh
has been
yeah,
passed down from, generation to generation throughout the centuries where it's like, how did people in like the ancient Polynesians discover that if they ate pineapple after they had a big like meat dinner,
meat.
that it
Yeah,
helped with the digestion? It's like,
I know.
those
It's
types of things.
amazing.
I love that.
And you know what I love is that, I think like if we just kind of block out the noise and
Yeah.
just try and think about things like that, you can really help yourself very easily with a lot of natural remedies
Yeah.
and avoid
Right.
a lot of prescription drugs.
Right.
I mean, don't get me like, I mean, big pharma saved my husband's life. So,
Right.
I
Sure.
don't
Okay.
knock it, but I also believe that there's a lot of things that we can do before prescription medications get used, right?
Right.
Um, and so, yeah, so HCl is hydrochloric acid. So that's, if any of you are like, heavy meat eaters, or you really have a lot of bloat or just uncomfortable symptoms when you eat, I recommend the HCl about 15 minutes before your meal. And what that is it's stomach acid. It's hydrochloric acid. That is what your stomach acid is. And so
Mm.
15 minutes prior, and that will help to digest the food. And I had a 6-month client, and she came to me with a lot of super bad digestive issues. Even if you burp a lot, like
Mm.
that's another sign. If you just like belch all the time, like that's
Right.
another sign of like a lot of acid or lack of acid. So you're not digesting your food properly and you're getting that
Yes.
gas.
Really
Yeah.
interesting.
So that one thing with my client changed her whole life. That's all she needed. She just has naturally low stomach acid, and so
Mm.
now she's been on an HCl tablet. Just that's just what she takes before she eats, and it
Okay.
has fixed everything for her.
Is that right? Hey. And
Yeah.
yeah, you see how that has like a snowball effect too, how much of this is compounding, huh?
Oh yeah. So then this is now also where things like food sensitivities now come in and play a role. So once we digest our food, sometimes we have food sensitivities that we're not quite aware of because the reaction isn't super powerful.
Or maybe not
So,
immediate.
or not immediate. Yeah. So sometimes there's things that we eat and it like irritates our tummy or our microbiome, like our guts, but it's
Right.
not enough for us to stop eating them, right? So in my field, we say that a really mild food sensitivity over time
Mm-hmm.
is extremely dangerous versus
Really?
somebody who has like a dairy or an egg allergy and they don't eat dairy because they are lactose intolerant, right?
Right.
What happens is I'm sure we've all heard of leaky gut syndrome. Leaky gut kind of leaky gut came around and was making waves quite a few years ago. And we all know that leaky gut is what causes inflammation in our body. Therefore, leaky gut was connected to many diseases, as inflammation is the start of all disease in the body. So
Yeah.
when we eat things we're not supposed to,
Right.
and our body isn't quite digesting them properly, it will over time, like our intestinal tract where the food goes after the digestion in our stomach, it's like this, right? It starts as
Yeah.
bricks and mortar.
Okay.
And over time, all the things we talked about that help, I guess, that contribute to poor gut health. So things like poor diet choices, deep fried foods, white, processed foods, smoking, alcohol, high levels of stress. All of those things over time will start to kind of make the mortar in between the bricks crumble. So
Mm.
then our intestinal tract looks like this.
No
And
way.
this is leaky gut. So this is where food actually, as now we didn't digest our food properly, so we have larger than normal and not what our body's expecting food particles leaving our stomach, and they go into our guts and into our intestinal tract. And when they enter our intestinal tract, if you have leaky gut, so let's say you eat eggs every day but you actually have a small sensitivity to them and you don't know, so over time those eggs are contributing to poking holes and making the walls crumble. Now
Okay.
that larger than should be food particle and it enters into the bloodstream through the intestinal tract. Once food enters the bloodstream from the intestinal tract, our body, it goes, whoa, this isn't supposed to be here.
What
What
the
is
heck is
this?
this? Yeah.
Yeah. And it instantly will create a form of inflammation to help fight it off. Because when we are sick, and when our body instantly will create a form of inflammation, or when you
Right.
hurt yourself, and there a little bit of inflammation at certain times is actually really good for the body. It's how the body heals from injury, right? But constant inflammation over a long period of time is where disease thrives. So
Right. It's the
yeah,
chronic inflammation that's the
it's the
problem.
chronic inflammation over time. So then, yeah, so now you've got this leaky gut syndrome, you've got inflammation, and it's causing all of those sort of problems. Now, again, leaky gut is again also linked to anxiety and depression.
No
Um,
way.
because if you think about it, if you've got food particles constantly going into your bloodstream because you have leaky gut and you've got that increase of inflammation has is what is linked to depression also, right?
Increase of inflammation
Inflammation.
is what's linked to depression.
Yeah, that's one of the causes. Like that's one of
No
the
way.
factors when it in gut health speaking.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that really goes to explain a lot about how why they say that your gut is like your second brain
Yeah. Yeah.
and how
So
closely connected those two really are.
yeah, and what else did so there was actually another really neat study, like speaking of the second brain. So one study illustrated how the gut and brain are connected through studying the effects of probiotics on patients with IBS, so irritable bowel
Okay.
syndrome.
Right.
Researchers found that twice as many patients saw improvements from depression when they took a probiotic as compared to other patients who took the placebo. Now, what's interesting is the improvement of the gut came an improvement, or sorry, with an improvement of the gut came an improvement of mental well-being.
No way.
Patients in this study took the probiotic called Bifidobacterium longum NCC 3001. So basically what that one is that's the one that you hear about in yogurt. So in
Okay.
cultured foods, right? That's the famous one in Activia. You see the
Right.
Activia commercials. That's
Right.
the Bifidobacterium is the one usually found in dairy, like in cultured foods, but it is found in all cultured and fermented foods, but it's specifically known for that in that one. And then studies show that patients with inflammatory diseases are prone to depression.
Hmm.
And the theory is that the dysregulation of the pathways involved in that gut brain axis
Right.
is responsible for this phenomenon.
No way, huh?
Yeah.
Wow,
So,
that's interesting. So it really
and
does all start in the gut.
yeah. And so this is that whole cycle you're talking about. Research indicates that inflammation leads to depression,
Yeah.
and depression worsens the certain responses. So then it just becomes this vicious cycle until we
Right.
heal the gut.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are
Interesting.
some things that you guys can do starting tomorrow to start to improve gut health and feel better, not only physically, but mentally? There's a few different things, and these suggestions are like really easy to implement. This doesn't
Beautiful.
have to take a lot of thought. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it's just about committing to, finding time in your routine at some point throughout the day to implement these few things. And if you can do that, I promise you'll see results within 30 days of following some of these suggestions.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So we talked about the HCl. So that's the first thing
Right.
you can do is take a hydrochloric HCl tablet before heavy protein meals, or if you do suffer from really uncomfortable indigestion and bloat all the time, take it with every meal.
Okay.
Like clients that I have come on my gut reset, like they take it even with their smoothie in the morning. And I
Oh,
wouldn't call that a heavy meal by any means, but when on the gut reset, we you know, go at it full
right.
send,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Can you just pick
Yeah.
that up at like Shoppers somewhere or
Yep.
something like
So
that?
HCl is found at pretty much any, any like, yeah, Shoppers Drug Mart, maybe, superstores that have that, like the health and wellness aisles, you can get
Right.
it there.
Gotcha.
And the Sobeys or Safeways that have the really big wellness sections, you can get it there also, or any health food store.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the first step. Then the second step would be to restore the amount of friendly bacteria in the microbiome. So how do we restore that? With the use of probiotics and prebiotics.
Okay.
So probiotics are there's two ways you can get probiotics. One is through a pill form.
Okay.
So you can just get there's shelf stable probiotics, or there's sometimes refrigerated sections in the
Right.
stores. And that's where those ones aren't shelf stable. So you want to keep those in your fridge.
Right.
Either or is fine. Now you'll see different levels. You'll see like 20 billion CFUs or 50 billion CFUs or 100 billion CFUs. What that means is the amount of different bacterial strains in that specific product.
Dosage. Sure.
Yep. So if you have never taken probiotics before, I would suggest starting probably a little lower on the lower end. Like I wouldn't go more than 50 billion. Um, if you've taken them before and they haven't bothered you, I mean, you could go to 100 billion. But the reason I suggest to start with a low dose or like a 20 billion to 50 billion is because as you flood your body and your guts with good bacteria, what happens is they basically take all of the space and all of the air. And so we get what's called die off. And
Okay.
what's happening is as they're infiltrating your guts, the bad bacteria have nothing to survive and thrive on anymore. So those bad bacteria are going to start to die off. They're going to start to die. And then your body is going to excrete them. But there are going to be some kind of yucky or detox like symptoms that can occur. So if you have poor gut health, you
Hmm.
will probably experience some of these symptoms. If you have pretty decent good gut health, you probably won't experience them. It just means that you had a lot of bad bacteria in there that's making its way out. So things like headaches can be common when you focus on gut health the first month because there's going to be a lot of toxins released
Into
from
your
these bad
bloodstream.
bacteria. Yeah, when they die.
Hmm.
So headaches, maybe a bit of nausea. You could have some constipation. You could have some diarrhea. Um, Epsom salt baths with some baking soda in the water with it is helpful. Warm lemon water every morning or throughout the day, or teas can also be really helpful. And of course, lots of water to help flush those
Of
toxins out
course.
as quickly as you can.
Right.
Now this is the thing is probiotics can be expensive. They can range anywhere from like 50 to $100 for a bottle, or higher. So there is a different way that you can get probiotics in that's a much more economical option. So things like fermented and cultured foods are just as good, if not better. Studies have shown that cultured foods have more diversity in the types of bacteria that are found in
Hmm.
them than the probiotics alone. So that's kind
Really?
of cool.
Yeah.
Um, Now, if you're going to choose the fermented food option or cultured food option, there's a few things you're going to want to be mindful of when you're shopping for these. So the first thing is so fermented foods would be things like kimchi, sauerkrauts, or pickles.
Okay. Gotcha.
Now, yeah, and they say like studies have shown that about 3 tablespoons of like a sauerkraut or a kimchi is all you need a day to get all the beneficial bacteria you would need to support optimal gut health.
Awesome.
So like at supper, just put, a little serving of krauts or whatever on your
Totally.
plate. Yeah. Now, the pickles that you see on the grocery store shelves, like, you like your Bix or your Vlasics, like those brands, those are not actually fermented pickles. Okay. Those are,
Really?
yeah. So those actually don't contribute to good gut health. And they're not, well, I mean, they don't cause bad gut health. They just don't contribute to good gut health. What you want to look for, or sorry, the reason why those don't is they actually put vinegar in
Right.
those pickles, and that vinegar is what gives the pickles like that crisp. Like when you bite it, it's what makes them really like crunchy and crispy.
Right.
Whereas fermented pickles are a little bit softer. They don't have that like crunch when you bite them, but they taste the same. But the vinegar used in that processing is in there to help actually keep them shelf stable because it kills bacteria.
Of course. Yes.
So what you're doing is you're killing all of that bacteria from pickling, right? Or
Interesting.
from
No
fermenting.
way. Okay.
So
Right.
what you want to look for is something without vinegar. So if you're going to buy like a sauerkraut off the shelf, I mean, all
Yeah.
the grocery stores there's like that brand. I was going to look at my fridge today and I forgot, but it's like in a glass jar, which is amazing. Always look for glass over plastic if you can with fermented items. Um, but got a yellow label around it and I think a red lid. And it's like
Okay.
$3.99. Well, I mean, it's probably $5.99 now.
Yeah.
um, but it's just a pickle kraut, or sorry, a sauerkraut. So it's just water and cabbage and salt. And so that's what you want to look for. If it has vinegar, you don't want to buy that one. And then there's a brand called Bubby's, which does fermented pickles. You can get them at like Superstore. I know in their like health and wellness section, they carry that brand, or you can go right directly on their website or right onto Amazon and you can order them. And that's a brand of fermented pickles.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
remember you saying something. This is probably about 18 months ago, or maybe 2 years ago now. I think I saw a post that you had made about the power of prebiotics and probiotics, and how
Yeah.
something as simple as a few tablespoons of sauerkraut can replace your box of the probiotics in the fridge. And at
Yeah.
that time, I was sitting on a box, and I was only like, taking them kind of occasionally. But since you shared that information, I've been having a spoonful with it with my breakfast every single day. And I
Amazing.
just feel like it's one of those things that, another little small step that contributes to my overall health and well-being. And
Absolutely.
maybe individually, it's not a big thing, I don't know, but all together, all of those things have a tendency to all compound. And I see this as one more little like brick, or one more little like step towards contributing to
That's exactly
anything
what it is.
114.
That's exactly what it is, Matt. That's what's so awesome about gut health is like you can implement like the most easiest strategies into your daily life and they have such profound effects long term.
Right.
Like it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be it's not like it's not like going to the gym and making an hour and like that big commitment. This is like something so
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
takes like next to no effort to just have a
Yeah.
spoonful of that on the side. And
And
it,
those and like $5 a month, right? To commit to
yeah.
like having that. And I know if you like kimchi, that's also a really, if you like spicy, that's
Right.
also great. If you want to switch it up, that's also an amazing one. Again, speaking of like old
Yeah.
traditions passed
Ancient
down
wisdom.
yes, that's what kimchi was.
Right.
That's what krauts are,
Yeah.
sauerkrauts. You know, those are from centuries ago.
Right.
And it's because number one, they were shelf stable, but also number two, it's
Right.
because they knew it was what kept them healthy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask a little two-part question here, but aside from the HDL, aside from some of the fermented foods like either sauerkraut or kimchi or pickles, are there any other things that would be an easy swap or an easy thing that would contribute to overall gut health? And also, second part to this question, do you have any things that are really like big no-nos, like things to
Mm.
avoid as far as kind of either hormone health or gut health? Because I hear about some things like scented candles, which I know that
Oh.
we've got a couple in our house that I know my wife loves them, but I've heard that some of the ingredients in household products, cleaning products, and some of those sorts of things, I'm sure margarine and the whole list, I mean, could probably be.
Friends don't let friends eat margarine.
Okay, there you
Yeah.
heard it.
Oh
Right
yeah.
on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. Answer to the first part of your question. Um, along with taking those probiotics, however you're going to get them in cultured foods through yogurts. This will go kind of answers both. Sugar. Okay.
Okay.
We need to be mindful of the amount of sugar that we're getting in certain kinds of foods that are advertised and promoted as health foods.
Right.
So, for example, a container of yogurt, we buy it because we think that, hey, yogurt's good for our gut health. If I have a container of Activia a day, I'm doing good.
Right.
Here's the concern and the issue is that little container, they usually have anywhere from like 12 to 18 grams of sugar per
Oh,
container, um, along with those probiotics that are going to come in it. But just to put that into perspective, every 5 grams of sugar is 1 teaspoon.
right.
So that means
Oh,
that little container has 3 to 4 teaspoons of sugar in it. So now sugar will cause poor gut health. It's going to kill the things that feed the good bacteria. And it's going to be what the bad bacteria thrives on.
right.
So I think like when you're shopping for things like that, you just be mindful of like I would go with like a plain cultured yogurt, like just a plain yogurt, and then add fruit in, like your
Sure.
own
Yeah. Yeah.
fruit, because then you get the
Uh,
fiber too.
right.
Um, so you need to feed the probiotics with prebiotics. How do we keep those probiotics thriving? We feed them through high fiber diets. So things like lots of a variation in all your fruits and vegetables, asparagus,
Hmm.
bananas, leeks, onions, and garlic
Right.
are some of the highest probiotic containing foods in the world.
Hmm.
So if you love raw is like raw onions or raw garlic. I mean, my husband will eat a raw garlic clove every morning. Like
No way.
I wish I
Wow.
could do that. I can't. But it's so good for you. And if you like raw onions, like throw it on pizza or even cooked,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. But raw, I mean, is just a little bit more fibrous, I guess. But raw or cooked, but throw them in soups, throw them in salads, throw them whatever. Feed the probiotics with prebiotics. You can also buy
Right.
prebiotic fiber. You can buy inulin powder. You can buy chicory root. That's just pure prebiotic fiber.
Right.
Throw it in
Okay.
and throw it in your coffee. Throw it in a drink. Drink it
Really?
down. Yep, easy peasy. Again, and with the cost of food, like maybe, and if you know you don't get a variation of vegetables in your diet like you should,
Yeah.
an inulin powder or a chicory root fiber or powder could be an awesome option for you.
Okay. Well, while we're on the subject there, I hear a lot about things like AG1 and veggie green drinks and stuff
Yeah.
like that. In your opinion, are those worth the investment? Do you kind of,
Um, so I'm an AG1 girl. I've
okay.
been on it since December. I've so almost a year. And I did find that I liked what I was experiencing from it. Like I felt less brain fog. It definitely like keeps you regular. But I would suggest those powders only if you really aren't eating a lot of fruit and veggies.
Gotcha. Okay.
Um, I mean, if you have like again, it's an expensive option, but for me, it worked well with my routine to like drink a however many servings of veggies that um, was pretty awesome for me because I mean, I
Right.
know I have a busy lifestyle and sometimes I'm just not getting in all the food I should be getting in.
Right.
So yes, do green powders contribute to good gut health? Absolutely they do because they
Okay.
are loaded with a ton of nutrients. They're loaded with a ton of fiber. Um, so I mean, I don't think they're ever a bad thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely
We
not a
used
bad
to
thing.
we used to sell those at the gym that I owned, and I always
Yeah.
thought of it as kind of like, hey, whole food sources primarily, for
Yeah.
the win. But I kind of looked at those kinds of supplements as kind of, an insurance policy on your fruits and vegetables, like covering your bases. It's better
Yeah.
than nothing, probably contributes to it, but don't rely on it.
Yeah, and you know what? I kind of thought of mine as a multivitamin. So when
Yeah,
I was taking my AG1, I don't take a multivitamin. I just do a green juice
interesting. Gotcha. Okay,
instead of
cool.
like, right? So if I can replace specific supplements with whole food options, I like that better.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
So
I would
yeah,
agree.
yeah. And then the last thing that you can do to like simple things to really enhance and optimize gut health and gut performance for you is, we've talked about digestion, we've talked about re-inoculating the guts, watch for those die-off symptoms. But lastly, we need to heal back the intestinal tract and we need to kind of heal the leaky gut, right? That's the last kind of piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
So the best way to do that is through things like glutamine powder,
Mm.
bone broths, um,
Mm.
collagen powders, and aloe vera juice.
No way.
So glutamine, I mean, anybody who's worked out and, visited a Popeyes, I'm sure you understand, like, know that glutamine powder is something so good for somebody who lifts weights. Reason being is that glutamine will heal muscle damage, right? So it's how you heal really quickly after a really good workout. Just like it has the ability to heal muscle growth or like muscles, it will also heal the wall of the intestines. It has a really great ability to help heal and soothe that area. So, sipping just on a glutamine powder throughout the day in your water is awesome to heal leaky gut. Sipping on bone broth is also an
Mm.
amazing way. It's full of gelatin and
Right.
collagen, right? So it also has the ability to heal the gut lining. So you can sip if you like bone broths, just to sip on those is a great choice. Or cook with them, like make soup
Yeah.
with bone broth.
Right.
Um, if you want, again, an economical way to make your own bone broth instead of buying it, because again, it can be expensive to buy pre-made. If you're going to do, I will just use my slow cooker
Okay.
chicken. You're going to throw, I always throw like just like you're making soup. So throw a bunch of roughly chopped up celery, carrots, and onions, garlic if you want in there with all the bones. Cover it with filtered water and then put your lid on. And let that chicken bones, you're going to want to have them simmer for 24 hours. Oh,
Mm.
sorry. Uh, and you need to put about a quarter cup of apple cider vinegar in the water.
Oh, no way. Okay.
That's going to leach the minerals out of the bones.
Really
Okay.
interesting.
If you're going to do bone broth, same thing. Your all your veggies, your apple cider vinegar, all your bones. But you're gonna want to do beef bone broth for 48 hours.
Beef
It
bone broth for 48 hours. Really?
Yeah, chicken is 24 hours, bones and beef bones are 48 hours to
Okay,
in
interesting. I
order
didn't
to
know you
absorb the
need.
nutrients properly. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And then
Okay.
you've got your own bone broth. Strain it and then throw that in the fridge and you can throw like make soup, make homemade soup with that or just sip on that, whatever is your fancy.
Well, even really nice this time of year too, is it's getting a little bit cooler outside to kind of have like a big mug of that and sitting by the
Oh
fire
yeah.
or anything like that. Like talk about
Yeah.
cozy, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Aloe vera juice. That's also you can buy um distilled aloe vera. So if you get regular aloe vera juice, it is awful. Like it
Okay.
is nasty. But so if you get distilled, it's about $5 more a bottle. It's worth every penny. It just tastes like water. It's the
Oh, no
consistency
way.
of water, looks like water, tastes like water. A shot of that a day, have it in the morning, throw it in your smoothie, have it before bed, it doesn't matter, but a shot of that a day. It has now one, I have had a couple clients react to it in a negative way. So aloe vera juice is excellent at healing, but it also can help with if somebody's constipated, you would take aloe vera juice. So I have had a couple clients that have had like very severe reactions to that. So just be mindful
So
that
it's
it
a
can
somewhat of a
cause,
laxative too.
yeah, it has laxative effects for some people.
Okay,
So just be
interesting.
mindful
So
before you
maybe
take it. Where are you going?
test it out
At home.
before you go. Yeah, at home. Yeah,
Yeah.
be close
Yeah.
to a bathroom.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
but I mean, I in all the years I've had two people react to it that way just recently in all the years that I've been doing it. But for
Gotcha.
anybody that, have that at home for other issues, that's a natural laxative.
Right.
And then collagen powders, of course, which collagen powders are great because they come in like chocolate flavor, they come in vanilla flavor, they come plain. So for me, I have a sweet tooth. I love sugar, like I love sweets, but I always try and find ways to like, what can I have that will like curb that sweet tooth for me and like fill that like, you know. So a chocolate bone broth with water and I'll drink it like hot chocolate.
No way. Chocolate
Yeah.
bone
So
broth, eh?
yeah, and it's a great one. There's a chocolate bone broth and a collagen. So it's a 20 grams of protein and filled with lots of gut healthy and gut healing properties. And it's like it feels like a treat, right?
No doubt.
So serve that to your kids. It's a great treat for your kids with a little bit of whipped
So
cream on
smart.
top. And with the holiday coming, instead of them having like a hot chocolate with like 40 grams of sugar in it, they wouldn't even
Right.
know the difference. It tastes so good.
Oh, that's amazing. So what's the
Yeah.
chocolate that you put in the bone broth?
It comes. So there's a brand called Ancient Nutrition. So
Okay.
the creator is Josh or Dr. Axe. It's
Okay.
AXE.
Okay.
I did learn from him in school. He has an amazing website. If you guys are ever looking for just like a go-to website for all things health and wellness, that's a great one. Um, and he has a brand of products, Ancient Nutrition it's called, and his
Cool.
bone broths are and his collagen powders all flavored with like different flavors. They're really good.
Beautiful. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very
So
cool.
those are the things that you can start to incorporate today or tomorrow. And honestly, if you commit for 30 days, I promise you, you will see a difference. And then again, the second part of that question, I think just steering away from processed foods and high sugar foods would be like my number one recommendation.
Okay.
For yeah, those are two pretty big things that contribute to poor gut health and alcohol.
And alcohol too. Hey.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, interesting. Well, that's amazing. And I love that, simple swaps that you can incorporate in your diet that take little to no effort. It's just more about that kind of consistency of doing the small things.
Yeah.
And isn't that true about life in general, huh?
Yeah, nothing's gonna come easy, right? But if you think about it like that and just really apply one thing a day or like, one pick one thing to incorporate this month even. And I promise you, even one thing will contribute to better gut health.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, before I let you run here, what's the best way to get in contact with you or to connect with you if people are looking to learn more or
Yeah, so I do have a gut reset program coming up. And the only difference that the gut reset program, I have a group program coming up for anybody that's like was really like feeling like, okay, this is talking to me. Like I really feel like I could use a gut reset. I
Yeah.
do a 28-day gut reset. The difference between that is we actually start with an elimination diet. So we eliminate all the high sensitivity foods out of the diet. So for 28 days, it's a pretty restrictive way of eating, but I am able to support with tons of recipes to help,
Cool.
get you through those 28 days. And there's everything from like breakfast smoothie ideas, breakfast, lunch, supper, and snack ideas all come with it.
Beautiful.
But you remove like eggs, gluten, dairy, corn, and soy.
Really?
Yeah. So all the things that
Eggs
are
too,
considered
huh?
high, yeah, eggs are one of the most high sensitivity foods on the planet.
What?
And I'll tell you one thing, out of all the years of me doing a gut reset, the number one food that I have had to like that clients have chose to remove after doing the reset is eggs.
Is that right? Hey,
Yeah.
I'm
My
like eggs
last,
number one fan. I
I
have
know
like a half a dozen
everybody
of them
is.
every day.
Everybody is because they're one of the most nutrient dense foods on the planet. I get it. But I actually just had a client, she discovered that it was the egg. Usually it's one or the other that we're allergic to though. It's either the egg yolk or the egg white. It's not
Okay.
usually both. So she's now able to have like her egg whites in the morning. She just can't have the yolk. But that was causing
Really?
all her issues.
No
But yeah,
way.
that's the only difference between the gut resets. We remove that. You're supported with recipes. There'll be a once a week check-in just to say like, how are things going? Where are you struggling? Where do you need support?
Right.
Um, and then it'll be done before Christmas so that you don't
Cool.
have to worry about being restrictive, at the time of year
During the
when
holidays.
holidays and food, it all comes together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody, you can reach out to me. You can DM me on social media pages. So Instagram is Melissa Bozak Health Coach. You can find me on there, or Facebook is, I think, Melissa Bozak Holistic Health and Wellness Coach is my business page on Facebook. Um, or my email, you can directly email me at Melissa Bozak um, at outlook.com.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, I'll
Yeah.
actually post a couple of things in some of our group chats. And if anybody is interested or wants more information, let me know and I can send you
Yeah.
Melissa's contact information as well.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you guys all taking the time to sit and listen. It was so nice to talk to you all about obviously what makes me the happiest.
Wow, this has been incredible, Melissa, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be here and to share some of this with us today because I certainly learned a lot, and I know that this is one of those things that, like you said, it's so integral to our overall kind of health and well-being,
Yeah.
physically, mentally, emotionally, the works. And it sounds to me like it's such a big part of it. It all starts in the gut, what we consume. Well, I always talk about the importance of, our diet isn't just what we eat and what we drink, but it's also who we spend time with and,
Yeah.
what we're watching, what we're reading, what we're listening to, and pollutions in the air and in our food and things like that, and what we drink too. So, obviously a very, very important aspect of it, but I appreciate some of those tips and yeah, some great information all around. So thank you so much for
Wonderful.
being here, Melissa.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, if anybody's looking for more information or wants to connect with Melissa, let me know and I'll forward you, send you some of her contact information. But that
Yeah.
sounds awesome.
Amazing. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.
Okay, well, thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Melissa. Take care, everybody.
Okay.
Happy Monday.